This is How Curious from KGOU, exploring your questions about Oklahoma. I'm Claire Donnelly. Nick Jungman loves QuikTrip.
One of my colleagues captured this perfectly. She said QuikTrip is the Disneyland of convenience stores.
You know those mini marts at gas stations? QuikTrip is one of those. And Jungman likes to get one treat in particular when he stops there.
All right, this is slightly embarrassing, but one of the things they have on the soda fountain at QuikTrip is an energy drink called Rooster Booster. And there's also a diet Rooster Booster. I think it's called Rooster Booster Light. It's kind of like a strawberry soda, but it's like, it's supposedly an energy drink, and I think it is pretty loaded on the caffeine, and it's kind of delicious.
QuikTrip is based in Tulsa. It has just under 800 locations across 11 states. But there are 0 QuikTrips in Oklahoma City. If you use the company's store locator, it drops those little red map pins for each store. There's a clump of red pins in northeast Oklahoma around Tulsa, and a clump of red pins down in Texas around Dallas and Fort Worth. Nothing in between.
And the story I've always heard about this is that there is a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement between the owners of QuikTrip and the owners of Love's, which is based here in Oklahoma City, that they would not invade each other's territory.
Jungman asked How Curious, is this agreement real? Why aren't there any Oklahoma City QuikTrips? So in researching this story, I learned people have different versions of this rumor, like that the gentleman's agreement is with a different company, like 7-Eleven or OnQ instead of Love's. I also learned Nick Jungman is not the only QuikTrip enthusiast.
I love QuikTrip. This is my favorite store in the world. I've lived in several other cities that didn't have QuikTrip, and I always love coming home to QuikTrip.
Yeah, I like the smoothies over here, the whole lineup, all flavors. I like them all.
Right now we're getting gummies and slushies and an ice cup.
Oh, food? Yeah, that's good.
A couple pieces of pizza.
Cigarettes and pop.
It's a good store.
A bunch of people I talked to said they like QuikTrip's food selection. The store makes a lot of things on site, like sandwiches and pizza. Don Longo says that's a nationwide trend that started in the last 10 years or so. Longo is the editorial director of Convenience Store News, a publication that covers the industry.
Fuel and cigarettes and beer and soft drinks was not going to drive their business in the future. A lot of those products became commoditized very rapidly, and profit margins were dying in those categories.
So convenience stores started serving food. Now Longo says breakfast and lunch are big money makers for many convenience stores, and he expects even more will join them.
And that's a survival thing for them because they're not going to be able to survive if they don't get better at food service in the future.
Okay, so back to QuikTrip. The company's story starts with football.
Touchdown kicks off at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas.
In 1957, a man named Bert Holmes traveled from Tulsa to Dallas to see the University of Oklahoma play the University of Texas.
This game pits the pupil against the teacher. For Texas coach Darrell Royal on the left learned his football from Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma.
OU won, by the way, 21-7.
That's Mike Thornbrew. He's a QuikTrip spokesman. Thornbrew says Holmes saw what we now call 7-Eleven. He liked the idea, and apparently Tulsa didn't have anything like it. So when Holmes returned from Dallas, he started looking around for business partners. Then Thornbrew says Holmes ran into an old classmate named Chester KGOU.
They sat down and really talked about it over a milkshake and a cup of coffee, and Chester bought in, and that's how QuikTrip really began.
The first store opened in Tulsa the following year in 1958. It wasn't like today's convenience stores. It didn't sell gas. It was more like a mini grocery store.
You drove up right to the front door, and it was a very, very small building that had the same items. The logic was, save people at 15, 20 steps.
Thornbrew says the first QuikTrip was crammed full of stuff.
Chester and Bert didn't think that they were going to survive because the store was horrible.
And the partners had no money to advertise, so Chester would just walk around the neighborhoods introducing himself to people. Thornbrew says the store gradually built up a following.
Chester would notice that the construction workers would come in, and they'd buy a loaf of bread, and they'd buy these big chunks of bologna and these big packs of cheeses. and they'd sit outside on the curb and they would cut things up and go ahead and make their lunch or their dinner.
Thornbrew says the company realized people wanted more food like this, so it slowly started changing its business. He also thinks QuikTrip invented the self-serve soda fountain, but I wasn't able to confirm that. The company started selling gas in the 1970s and eventually became the QuikTrip we know today. Now, for the million-dollar question, why aren't there any Oklahoma City stores? Does QuikTrip have an agreement with another convenience store?
There was a 7-Eleven, still is a 7-Eleven company in Oklahoma City. And Chester used to drive over and ask the guy questions because he didn't know how to run the business.
And Thornbrew says this guy was really helpful.
So there is this urban legend that our folklore that's out there that there's some time a handshake. It's just not true. It was just really old school respect.
7-Eleven didn't respond to my interview request, and Love's declined an interview. OnQ CEO Jim Griffith says in an email his company has no agreements, formal or informal, with other companies about where it can or can't operate. I asked Mike Thornbrew, if there's no agreement keeping QuikTrip out of Oklahoma City, why aren't there any stores here?
I mean, obviously, the folks that currently operate in Oklahoma City, they're really good operators, and they do a good job. It's pretty saturated.
Thornbrew says it's just better for a company like QuikTrip to go somewhere with less competition. I wasn't able to track down specific Oklahoma City numbers, but according to a 2018 Nielsen TD Link census of convenience stores, the entire state of Oklahoma has 2,614 stores. States with similar population densities in the 2010 census, Arizona, Arkansas, and Iowa, have between 1,700 and 2,200 convenience stores. So we do have more, up to 500 more, but again, that's in the whole state. Will there ever be a QuikTrip in Oklahoma City? Thornbrew says he doesn't know. Question asker Nick Jungman says he's holding out hope.
I mean, surely they're running trucks between Tulsa and Dallas, or, that they're coming right through Oklahoma City.
Jungman says in the meantime, he'll keep making trips to Tulsa, Dallas, and Wichita to get his beloved Rooster Booster energy drink. Do you ever bring Rooster Booster back with you? Yeah,
I get a giant cup of Rooster Booster Light, when I'm in Wichita, and that lasts me for the trip home to Norman.
Get it without ice.
Yeah.
Put a lid on it.
Or bring in my own gallon jug. I wonder how they'd react to that.
Thanks for listening to How Curious. The show is a production of KGOU Radio. It's produced by me, Claire Donnelly. This episode was edited by Caroline Halter. David Gray composed our theme music. You can find other questions we've answered by clicking the Programs tab on kgou.org or subscribe to How Curious on your favorite podcast app.